Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we are helping the world experience what's possible. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out shortly. This one is called Transformative Leadership, Self-Mastery for the New Voice of Business Success. And before I introduce these authors to you, I really need to say a huge thank you to our lead author, Jill Austin. Jill, we wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much for your big mission and vision for this book and this topic, and for bringing together a stellar cast of expert co-authors. We're going to have a really awesome, juicy conversation today, you guys. So those big thanks go out to Jill. And I've got some amazing people in my Zoom room. Carrie Freshour is the founder of Carrie Freshour Consulting, where she empowers individuals and organizations by fostering resilience and dismantling workplace stigma. Kiran Lakshman is a healing artist, writer, and teacher who brings forward people's manifestation tools and cultivates energy, philanthropy, values in the community. Susan Holt is the president and senior consultant of Vision Philanthropy Group, whose goal is to guide mission-driven organizations in realizing their life-changing big visions. Ooh, I hear some overlap in themes with these beautiful authors today. I can't wait for this discussion. All right, Carrie, you're going to start the party off today. Tell us the why behind this leadership chapter for you.
Sure. Hi. First, thanks for having me here and being in such good company. The why, this one was deeply personal. With as being a clinical social worker for, more than 25 years now, and working in the field of human behavior and understanding kind of psychology and what works behind our reactions and our responses. I found myself as the CEO working through major trauma. We had a devastation of a house fire, and I was in this field of it. It just was this feeling that was starting to really become articulate with me. And the word that comes to mind is a dichotomy between what we say we're going to do and what we actually do in our reactions and our responses, and the pain that can come from that when we don't do both, and the shame that can come from hearing that this is how it should be and receiving something totally vastly different. And it really, no pun intended, it lit a fire under me. Here I am managing, the CEO of a huge insurance claim and fire and rebuild. And what did you have in your home for 20 years of marriage and 2 children and all the things, to being the CEO and trying to figure out boardroom meeting minutes and planning and payroll and all those things, and how we show up for people when something happens, how we show up when something unplanned comes on a Sunday afternoon, even though there are plans on Monday morning at the office. And that really drove me to tell my story, and also to share the joy of how I pulled out of that, how I used those tools, those skills that I had been trained in clinically, that I had really tried to role model as a leader, and how I could bring that forward and say this dichotomy that exists, there's a way through, and here's what's helped. So that's my why.
Yeah, and just treating people with the way they need to be treated after trauma. You're making me think, we've got pregnancy leave, but we really need trauma leave. We need something that says, hey, if these things should happen, what do you think is the most important thing for someone to know when they have to, this isn't something you anticipate, it's thrust upon you. You then deal, man, from minute one, you have to deal with all the things together. And I know it's hard to nail it to one most important, but what do you think that would be for somebody?
The most important thing to know, or to how to respond, is that what the
Yes,
was?
exactly.
Yeah. uh, I think that it's doing, it's acting, it's not words in these situations. It is people showing up. we had a community show up around us, from the baseball coach on my son's team to, people that had heard our story. And it wasn't, the words were great and, oh my gosh, so meaningful. So don't hear me wrong. Action, coming and showing up and saying, hey, I left this for you, or we're thinking of you, and this is what we're doing to help you, really coming and showing up, whether it be, hey, we know there's payroll coming, but we talked to our payroll company and they're on board and they're helping us in a crisis. We have an onboarding team. We went right to them. It's those actions that are like, thank you so much, because I don't have the mind space right now to manage all the things, but my personality, my drive, my high achieving leadership in me is going to do her best to try. And it may not show how hard it actually is. And so those actions, man, they meant the world to us, both personally and professionally.
Carrie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for saying yes to this project.
Thanks for having me.
I can hear, I can not hear, I can feel relief in what Carrie's saying about people taking action. They're, just like right here in my heart space, and feeling that relief. Okay, Kieran, tell us the why behind your leadership chapter. And let's unmute Kieran.
Thank you, Laura. And I want to second that wonderful gesture of gratitude to Jill Austin for inviting me into this beautiful project, and her vision of what is the meaning behind all these stories that she has heard in her friends, which leads to the why. That it's been a long time that I've been fascinated with certain modalities like meditation and dream work and quantum teachings and things that enrich me and make a solid foundation inside of me and in others who I have worked with. And Jill Austin and I toss ideas around and we ask each other, how are we bringing about the so what of this inner work in our lives? And to me, it's kind of like, how are we not bringing about, sort of like everything we do is different because we come from a different place inside of ourselves than had we not done and studied certain things. So I am so pleased to connect the stories of dreaming, for example, or understandings of shamanic practices, connect those to what they would offer to leadership. And for me, it offers me a sense of integrity, that I have values on the inside of me and I have a way to ask them to inform what I'm doing outside of me because of the modalities. So I don't have to live like I'm two separate people showing up on the outside in a way that is not connected to the inside, just because I don't know how to transfer what high standards or sense of humanity I might have inside of me. I might not know how to match it up to a big machine that I belong to in the outside. I don't have to be in that position. So that's leadership, that I can step forward, be me, and that can become part of the equation of the bigger picture that I belong to.
I love, there's a couple things that you said that kind of highlighted for me. I love how you said you and Jill talk a lot about how you're bringing about the so what from the work, because that's like the practical application. So I just wanted to rewind to that line for a second. But even more so, you said it helps me not show up as two people. Like, I thought a lot about that when you just said it, and how maybe we are showing up as two people and why that's not healthy. Will you just talk for another minute about that? What's important about that?
I have this, I guess, a description of what it's like at the end of life. And I don't mean to trigger anyone's emotions if that is a sensitive issue, but I call it the mirror of the grave. And that as I look at, myself at the end of my life, I'll be unable to hide behind excuses. I will have no one but myself that I'm looking at in the mirror of the grave. And if I knew myself as a certain expansive being, but then I see in the stories of my life that I was somebody smaller in the activities that I did and the involvements that I had, then I would feel like I was two people, one that I knew, and maybe my close friends or family, my close inner circle might have known that I was that person. But in the impact that I had, I guess in a leadership, you would say, that I took, I was somebody else. And I don't want to be left with that sense of two people, and then the term that I apply to that is integrity, when I'm not two people, but that who I am on the outside and who I am on the inside are close enough. I'll always be bigger on the inside, but that they're close, that I recognize how I'm showing up in my leadership or in my external involvements.
Karen, thank you so much for being here today and sharing about this.
Thank you for having
me. That subject that we're on, if it's sparking some inspiration for you listeners, like, ooh, what does that even mean? And in the questions are the biggest opportunity. And so I really loved that one. If you're showing up as two different people, ooh, there's some opportunities there to make some magic for your life. Susan, your turn. Tell us about the why behind your chapter.
Well, like my other colleagues here today, it's really a pleasure to be with you, Laura, and to be a part of this project, and just really lean in on some really personal stuff here, and so Carrie and Karen, thank you for sharing your intimate stories. Jill and I have been talking about philanthropy and business for going on close to 35 years. We've walked a lot of walks together, and as staff in the trenches and as leaders, from different vantage points. And so when we talked about this, I thought, what has been most important to me throughout my 40-year career now in philanthropy, that really makes a difference in leadership in philanthropy and leadership in our world. Our world faces such challenges. We've always faced challenges. I love to read history. And at various times, there have been different points of inflection, right? But it seems like today, as we're going through some really pivotal times in our world, our organizations, our institutions, our people are asked and sometimes implored to step up in ways that we've not had to step up before. I mean, there are huge challenges that we face. And I have enjoyed and been very grateful and honored to be working in the philanthropy field that has an opportunity to help answer some really, really important questions and challenges in our world. Many of them are life-changing, are life-saving, And so how do our leaders respond to those life-changing questions and really opportunities? And one of the things that I came to learn through my work with a number of different leaders, and then as myself as a philanthropy leader, was that it is about deep, meaningful, connected relationships. And Carrie, you spoke to that, and you did as well, Karen. But Carrie, especially in terms of these people that took action, that really made sure that in meaningful ways during points of great trauma and disappointment and pain in your life, that they were stepping up and in a truly authentic, connected way. And what we talk about in philanthropy a lot is giving through relationships, connecting through relationships. And I think that in today's world where we're living in a time that we connect with people in so many different and sometimes just instantaneous ways, are we truly leaning into those deep, sacred, truly sacred relationships that where we come to with trust, with authenticity, with honesty, with vulnerability, with transparency, in ways that help people understand how they can be a part of making life-changing, transformational things happen through their resources. And how we help the groups that we lead as well connect in ways internally with ourselves, with the groups that we're a part with, and then with our external world in a way that they can really truly bring and lean into being a part of the big vision, shared big visions that are a part of their shared passions, gratitude, impact, values. And that's my why. That's my why of why I want to be a part of this kind of work that Jill and I have talked about for decades now. We've watched our children grow up as we've had these conversations. So my why is very much a part of that personal connection. Again, and the why of helping organizations realize how they can be a part of life-changing work, truly transformational work in the world.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's a big one. It's a big why, you guys, and it's a lot, isn't it? And all of you are doing such amazing work in the world. One of the reasons I love these books so much is we need all your unique voices. And so we pull a lot of people together for those real stories, and also the expert and practical strategies that you're about to get in this book from these master teachers I have here with me. It's really a phenomenal gift. And I can't wait for people to read all of your chapters. And thank you for taking the challenge that I gave you to put those vulnerable stories down and really help people that way. Kieran, I'm going to pop over to you for this next question that I'll come around to all of you with. But self-mastery is a part of the theme of transformative leadership. It's in our subtitle. And we here, especially all of us, all the authors too, and a lot of people listening, we've all been on that journey of self-mastery. So what I want to know is, what was the thing in yourself that you had to master? And I know there's probably 100 answers, but if you could think of that one first foundational thing, and give us a little window into that process for you.
That's a great question, Laura. Thank you so much. And it seemed as I was just listening to Susan speak so eloquently about the type of relationship that she invited organizations and individuals into, things like authenticity and transparency and trust. These are all qualities to strive for. You know, you don't just wake up and be able to do those things. And so I feel like early on, I got a sense of being a kind of being that I wanted to be. And I had some negative examples in my past. And I didn't want to just be a carbon copy of those negative qualities and say, well, because of those factors and those influences, that's why. Again, those are excuses that don't stand up the mirror of the grave. So it might have those same words that Susan was mentioning, authenticity and trust and transparency, those might have been tall orders some decades ago. But I feel like as I applied modalities in the quest of self-mastery, then I became better able to offer, to be trustworthy. And I had someone inside who could then show up in an authentic way, who had some subtleties and some beauties and some graces or strengths or resources that were worth offering authentically. So we don't want to authentically show up and be like, you know, the Joker in the Batman series. We want to authentically show up and be someone of value to ourselves and to our immediate communities and to the planet as a whole. So I think it's that kind of microcosm in the macrocosm that leads me to understand self-mastery, that I have a resource and a value in both of those worlds, microcosm and macrocosm. And I'm not sure if that went to the root enough. Did you want me to speak about origins?
We don't have the time, girl. You know, and I always joke because these topics that we pick are big, and you did it. You kicked that question off brilliantly. I want to mention too that my definition of mastery is somebody who is in a beginner's mind, no matter what level on the journey they're at. And so you realize mastery is a lifelong pursuit. It is not something achievable at a certain stage because you've done a certain amount of whatever. And I think one of the biggest things I love about my brave healers is they're all walking that walk. They're all showing up where they're at with whatever they've learned, and then they're open to learn, you know, continued learning. No, that was beautiful, Karen. Thank you. Susan, I'm going to move to you with this question, you know, talking about self-mastery. What was that one thing in yourself that you had to master? And again, I know this could be an answer that goes on forever and ever, but I just want the one thing today.
I would call it bold listening.
I like it.
Really bold listening. I think a lot of us are not always, as we ask questions or as we think we're listening to people, are we truly listening to understand? Are we asking questions that are learning questions? And then are we really listening to really understand and know what the other person, where they're coming from, and whether that is as a position as a leader or as someone who is a part of an organization. But I would challenge people to think really carefully and to practice. And I had to practice this, to really practice how they're listening, because if we're not listening well, we really are not able to understand. We're not able to help solve problems. We're not really meeting people from where they're coming from. And I think, there was a lot that I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, as you just alluded to, Laura. But I think that bold listening, self mastery was one that I think we can all work on. And it was certainly one that I needed to spend some time with.
I love that, Susan. I think bold listening is this thing that allows you to ask great questions. And when you get to being able to ask great questions, you get to deeper understanding and connection. And so I love those two words together, bold and listening. All right, Carrie, your turn on this one. So that whole self-mastery journey, what was that one thing in yourself? Give us a little peek in your window there. Oh.
Wow, that is a hard one because it feels like it is a forever moving learning target, and that's something I love and thrive off of.
And
I think
Carrie,
if
we
I
lost
had,
we lost your video there. You unmuted, but there you go.
oh,
Now you're back.
I
Thank
hit
you.
two buttons at once. Thank you. So yeah, if I had to sum it up, I think for me personally, as a human, as a leader, as a mama, as all these roles that we play in our life, right, that we are leading in, because I truly believe as leaders, we don't just lead at work. We show up and lead in so many ways. For me, I had to really, and I'm still learning, blind faith. I had to trust, and I had to get quiet and to hear and to listen and to really reflect, because I love how, Karen, you said, showing up as two people. Man, I think there were days I felt like I was showing up as five. This is how I showed up for the kids in the face of hard. Here's how I showed up for my board when I had to get a little bit stern and really be authentic and transparent and vulnerable. And I had to really be raw in that vulnerability. And a part of that blind faith is trusting that the words will come, the instinct is there to listen, to ground all of the popcorn, right? Just like this beautiful conversation today. Oh, the places we can go. And there are so many things that come up for us. And how do we begin to ground it, to trust it, and to be authentically transparent in that, in the most appropriate ways, right? What does that look like? That's a whole other topic, but there are ways. I think if I wanted other people to hear and be inspired by, we can be authentically, vulnerably, courageously us in all areas of our life. And it doesn't mean we tell all the things and we spill all the beans and everybody knows every little intimate detail about us. It's both and really learning to balance that, I think, has been something that I'll forever try to master. I'll always be a learner but I think that's the voice that I can now share and the action that I get to show people how to do that, as we walk in all of the things that we're carrying in our world today.
Thank you for that. Blind faith. Wow, that's a tough one, isn't it? Especially if
Yes.
you've been burned in the past. I think that I would add to this piece that it's like a place I strive to be in my day to day, with that blind faith, that full on love, that full on trust. I want to live like that. And I also want to maintain safe and healthy boundaries for myself, but I'm mostly leaning into this thing that you're talking about. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, from a leadership perspective, I also find that we often want to control it all. We want to put it all in and button it up and have it look a certain way. And we're working with humans so often, whether we're working with humans in our product service delivery, or whether it's the people that we're working with, our teams, that when it's humans, we have to be able to allow for that flexibility. That takes some faith in others, and faith in that if it doesn't work, we will know how to pick it up and continue moving it forward.
Yes. Oh, I love it. All right. I have a last question for all of you, and I want you to think of our listeners and their journey with this one. Susan, I'm going to start with you. So, what do you think in terms of transformative leadership, and really what that even means. What do you want people to know as they develop their own leadership style? What's that one most important thing you want them to know?
Oh, goodness. Wow, Laura, that's a really big, tall order too, because I don't know that there is just one thing. Maybe it's one thing coupled with some little tributaries. But I think the one thing is believe in yourself. You know, really, if you are truly dedicated to becoming a transformative leader and learning all along the way, which as we've discussed this morning, you have to you commit to that journey. You commit to that journey and all that it's going to require of you. But I think that the one thing is that you need to be able to believe in yourself. And sometimes we as women are not necessarily socialized to do that. Now, I know that we're talking to a lot of different, but we happen to be all female on this today. Um, I think that that would be the one thing with the tributaries along the way of the continuation of checking ourselves, of committing to the journey of learning, of checking in with others, of bringing in mentors and people into our journey that are going to be uh, really important to us and transformative to our work. But without that deep belief in ourselves and others that we invite in to be our mentors in that process, um, uh, it's a truly difficult to become a truly transformative leader.
That's awesome. And that's exactly what I meant, because I know there's a million things, but really just to leave us with that idea and belief in yourself. Yeah, believe in yourselves and your big ass dreams that you have, that big vision. It's that will carry somebody through beyond as well, from the beginning to the middle to the end, right? Carrie, how
Yeah,
about you?
just one last thing I would add, Laura, is
Yeah,
even as you believe in yourself, it doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes and you don't have to, I mean, you still have to check yourself. So I just want to be, fully
listen,
transparent on that. Right.
mistakes and failures are stepping stones to me. Make more mistakes, y'all. Like, figure it out. Like, don't be afraid. Some people get paralyzed because they're paralyzed from being afraid of making a mistake or a failure. That is how you move forward, right? Is
Yep.
being fearless like that. So yeah, another topic for another 3-hour discussion. We're really doing it today, you guys, with these.
Yeah.
Like, we know we're teasing some of these subjects, y'all. Carrie, what's your version of this in terms of just the one thing you want to leave people with today, the thing that you think is foundational in terms of their journey of developing their own leadership style?
I think, Susan, you said something earlier that really resonated with, how we show up as our authentic self. And what I would say when I look at the umbrella of becoming a transformative leader, and in my chapter, I talk about surviving to thriving, this idea of becoming a trauma-informed leader, which is a buzzword out there right now. And here's what I always say that I think sums it up to being authentically, vulnerably true to you. Lead with curiosity. We started this podcast with Laura, you had said, we have more opportunity in the question. Ask more questions. If you are not certain, if something isn't resonating, if something is sitting uncomfortably, ask more questions. If we can lead with that curiosity, the opportunity that comes, absolutely, but the information that we gain, the understanding of us all being human and making mistakes, and how do we pick up, and how do we do all these things we're talking about today, we learn more in that curiosity about people's why, about what's maybe possibly going on that could contribute to this thing I see, and whether I like it or not, I'm be curious. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, curiosity is a superpower for sure in leaders and in life. I think in all aspects, that is such a powerful one. Okay, Kieran, you're going to close us out today with the answer to this for you. What's that thing you want people to know as they're on the journey and they're developing their own leadership style? What is it for you?
Yeah, this is a wonderful way to conclude. And I get to cheat because now I have the idea that Susan put forward about believing in yourself, and I have the idea that Carrie put forth letting everything be a part of the equation. So now mine is 3 ideas and not just one. In my chapter, I discussed a process of receiving inspiration through dream work, and then letting that inspiration itself be a fuel that will link the footsteps of the self with the opportunities and the resources that are needed. And I think that that is an echo to something that Susan and Carrie are saying, which is that there's a nonlinear process, and you can trust it with exceptions, and dare to step into it, look in nonlinear ways at the experience. It is not, you cannot assume that the road from A to B is as you think in advance. So be curious. I heard another one of you say that, Carrie, you said that, be curious about now what is unpacking, now what is unpacking. And that relates to dream work, because in the self, something is always unpacking, and there are signs, there are ways to hear what is unpacking. And similarly, you can hear in your relationships and your involvements what is unpacking there too. And then the process becomes nonlinear. And so my like big sort of like message to say is to allow the journey to be nonlinear, and to invite ways of learning to see at least your own nonlinear thought process that will then give you a better insight into situations and people as that is happening to them too. Then you can bring it into conversation if you practiced it with yourself.
Love it, Karen. Thank you. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, people get to hear about dream work and leadership in the same sentence. Like, I hope that wakes you all up to what's possible in terms of not only leadership and leading others, but just your life. And to all 3 of you, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's wonderful
Thanks,
to be with
Laura.
all of you this morning.
Yes, I so enjoyed this conversation. And Laura, thank you so much for holding this container where all of this powerful synthesis can happen.
My total pleasure. For our listeners, this is way more than a book, you guys. This is a generous community of experts who are ready to answer a question that may have come up during our conversation, give support for those of you who need it. Maybe you got inspired by something you heard today and you want to reach out. Just drop down into the show notes, because I have all of our authors hooked up with their links there. You can connect and you can ask that question, and you can get support and be in this amazing, generous community that we have. You can also come to our book launch party. You're invited. October 3rd, we're going to have all of our authors there for Transformative Leadership. celebrating. You guys are invited to the Zoom. The info is down below about how to get that information. And of course, you can get on over to Amazon and buy your copy of this beautiful book. It could be a life changer, it could be a business changer. It could really open your eyes up to what's possible. And I love that idea. I love what we're doing, and I'm so proud and so honored to be here with you authors today and all of our authors in the community. Lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.